What if I told you that Africa, yes, Africa, could stop being just a consumer of technology and rise as a bold producer, innovator, and exporter? What if the next smartphone in your hand didn't come from California, South Korea, or China, but from the heart of West Africa, made by African hands for African lives? Welcome to Burkina Faso, where a quiet revolution is unfolding, one microchip at a time. In a world that constantly underestimates Africa, Burkina Faso just flipped the narrative. The country has launched its first electronics assembly plant. But this isn't just about gadgets. This is about reclaiming economic power, rewriting destiny, and saying enough to a system that drains Africa's wealth while feeding it back in the form of overpriced foreign-made products. Inside the industrial zone of Kossodo in Ouagadougou, something historic began in 2021. The construction of a factory unlike any seen before in the region. This is where smartphones, tablets, and laptops are no longer just imported luxuries. They are locally built instruments of empowerment. Partnering with China's tech giant Haier, the plant is not just assembling electronics. It's creating opportunities, transferring knowledge, and challenging the idea that high-tech only belongs to the West or Asia. It's about time Africa built its own digital destiny. Let's put this in context. For too long, Burkina Faso ranked near the bottom of the world's Digital Readiness Index, 131 out of 141 countries, according to Cisco's 2019 report. Internet access reached barely 17% of the population. Mobile phone ownership barely crossed 50%. And yet, demand was exploding. Young people from Ouagadougou to Gawa were desperate for connection, for tools to learn, build, innovate. But the tech they needed was either too expensive or too far away. That's the trap Africa has been caught in for decades, exporting raw potential, importing finished promises. But now, things are changing. In May 2021, Horizon Industries SA, 35% owned by the Burkinabè government, secured over 7.5 billion CFA francs, almost 14 million USD, from local banks and development institutions to build the country's first electronics assembly plant. The partnership with Haier wasn't about dependency. It was strategic. Burkina Faso needed the technical know-how to get off the ground. Haier brought world-class expertise in manufacturing, logistics, and quality control. Burkina Faso brought the will to transform. By April 2022, the factory officially opened its doors, initially producing 200 devices a day, smartphones, laptops, tablets. It quickly proved this wasn't some symbolic project. It was real, efficient, and homegrown. But here's what makes this plant even more powerful. It's not just about making gadgets. It's about making people. This factory doubles as a training ground. Students, technicians, engineers, young Burkinabè are gaining real skills in production, logistics, design, and innovation. They aren't just reading from textbooks. They're soldering circuits, managing supply chains, launching ideas. This is how you build a self-reliant tech ecosystem, not through aid, but through action. And the vision is growing. In February 2025, the Burkinabè government signed a procurement deal with Horizon Industries. Government offices will now begin replacing foreign tech with locally assembled devices. That means millions of dollars once flowing out of the country will now recirculate within. That means jobs. That means pride. That means sovereignty. Right in the middle of this story, we want to pause and say thank you. To every subscriber, every member of our Voice of Africa community, thank you for standing with us as we share Africa's untold victories. You are the reason this platform grows, and your support keeps these stories alive. If you believe in an Africa that builds, creates, and leads, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Let's push this message far and wide. Now back to Burkina Faso. Because the story doesn't end at the factory gate. This is about a bigger shift, the national pursuit of economic sovereignty. In April 2025, the government nationalized several foreign-owned gold mines. Why? Because enough was enough. Why should Africa's wealth leave its shores without building its future? The same principle now applies to tech. Every device made in that plant is one less device imported. That's retention of wealth. That's industrial strength. And other African nations are taking notice. If Burkina Faso can do it, what's stopping the rest of us? Of course, the road is not without obstacles. Power supply remains a huge challenge. Consistent electricity is critical for electronics manufacturing. And like many African countries, Burkina Faso suffers from frequent outages. But the government is fighting back, with renewable energy projects including solar investments worth 18 billion CFA francs in 2025 alone. Mini data centers. Telecom upgrades, clean energy grids. These aren't dreams anymore, they're blueprints. Component sourcing is another hurdle. While devices are assembled locally, key parts like semiconductors still come from Asia. But even here, the higher partnership gives Burkina Faso leverage, access to global supply chains, potential for future component production, and perhaps one day homegrown chip design. Let's not forget the competition. Tech giants like Samsung, Tecno, and Infinix dominate West Africa. They have deep pockets, vast networks, and brand recognition. But here's what they don't have: devices made for African conditions. Locally assembled tech in Burkina Faso is designed to endure extreme heat, fluctuating power, and rugged use. That's not a gimmick. That's an edge. And as telecom towers rise, 800 new ones by the end of 2025, more Burkinabè will come online. More users, more learners, more innovators. The cycle feeds itself. Demand drives production. Production builds skills. Skills lead to innovation, and innovation fuels independence. But we must talk about security. Between 2019 and 2022, Burkina Faso saw a sharp rise in vandalism targeting telecom infrastructure. These aren't just disruptions. They threaten the very arteries of the digital economy. Community engagement, state protection, and local stewardship will be vital in safeguarding this new infrastructure. Despite all these hurdles, the benefits are already cascading. Affordable smartphones, laptops, and tablets are reaching schools, universities, government offices, and small businesses. They are closing the digital divide, not with charity, but with pride. Repairs are faster, service is better, and tech is no longer some distant privilege. It's becoming a right. The workforce is growing too. Technicians, engineers, managers, all gaining hands-on experience. This isn't just about jobs. It's about dignity. It's about standing tall in a world that often asks Africa to kneel. Burkina Faso is now signaling to other African nations, we can build, and they are listening. From Nigeria to Kenya, from Ghana to Ethiopia, local assembly plants are on the rise. What started in one industrial zone in Ouagadougou may ignite a continental wave. The spark is already catching. Burkina Faso didn't stop at electronics. The introduction of the Itawa electric vehicle showed that this country is thinking big, beyond gadgets, toward complex technology ecosystems. That's a marker of maturity. That's a flag of leadership. And this matters globally, too. As Africa enters the tech production space, it disrupts the old narrative. It changes the conversation. No longer is Africa simply the last mile for foreign sales. It becomes the first spark of global innovation. It's about more than catching up. It's about leaping ahead. This shift can reduce vulnerabilities to global supply chain shocks, foster resilience, and unleash a generation of creators. Imagine what happens when millions of African youth, armed with skills, tools, and ambition, begin to innovate at home. That's not a trend. That's a transformation. Burkina Faso's state-backed 35% stake in Horizon Industries ensures that this movement isn't just profit-driven, It's policy-driven. It's national. The government's commitment to local procurement is not just smart economics, it's an ideological stance. Africa must own its future. And this is where the continent's future could change forever. Imagine if every African country built local assembly lines, AI labs, renewable energy tech, and medical innovation centers. That wouldn't just be industrial development. It would be the birth of an Africa that exports not just raw resources, but refined ideas, devices, and solutions. Burkina Faso's electronics plant is a symbol, a seed, and a statement. It says to the world, "We are done waiting. We are building." And to all of Africa, it offers a challenge. Let's stop importing our future. Let's invent it. If you believe in this vision, an Africa rising not just in voice, but in industry, then let's keep this momentum going. Share this video. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Would you buy a device proudly made in Africa? Would you invest in African innovation? Let's start the conversation. Let's spark the future. And don't forget, subscribe to Voice of Africa, where we don't just tell stories, we tell truths, bold, unapologetic, African.